Too often, Black women are a mere afterthought in conversations around wellness, but not in this space. On this podcast, the dialogue is always centered around women like you. Welcome to the podcast, but more importantly, welcome to the tribe. Be well, sis.
All right, so today I am super excited to have the authors of Real Friends Talk About Race, Bridging the Gaps Through Uncomfortable Conversations. With us, Yseult and Hannah, thank you so much for being here. How are you guys today?
Great. Thank you so much for having us, Cassandra.
Thank you.
So happy to be here. Thanks for having us.
Thank you. Thank you for being here. I appreciate your time. So I just want to jump right into the conversation. How did this book come up? Because yes, the title is so true. Like we real friends do have uncomfortable conversations, especially about race. But what inspired the book? Was it your friendship or?
So I think that to understand the book, we have to explain where it came from. It came from conversations that were nurtured through our podcast, the Kindling podcast. And so Hannah and I met in a co-working space for women. And basically, members had been invited to come and have this conversation, which literally was named How to Bridge the Gap Between White Women and Women of Color. And so I went, and I was so nervous that day because I knew I was going to hear crazy things. Like my body was just telling me that it was just going to be uncomfortable and just awkward. And so when I got there, predominantly it was white women, a few women of color, not many Black women. And so the way it was set up, it was kind of like a fishbowl, and everyone was sat, main speakers were sat inside the circle, and then people could come in and participate in the conversation. And the room was full of white women, but the white women did not participate in the conversation. It was mainly women of color. Mm. And they graciously shared about their experience, shared about their trauma. And then white women were just sitting there watching and listening, but not participating. And I thought it was such a missed opportunity for so-called allies to be able to be part of a conversation and to have a safe space. No one is recording. It's not, you could just speak and ask questions. And so when towards the end of the conversation, I asked to step in. And so I got to be in the middle. And I said, instead of just feeding into already things that people were sharing that was very intimate, I said, listen, I think that it's very awkward and weird that you are all white people that have not decided to participate. You just came here and listen to people talk about their suffering. Once again, this kind of setup of BIPOC people talking about how hurt they are and then not feeling humanized because there's no legitimate interaction. Yeah. So I was like, it feels voyeuristic and I don't like it. And so from there, I think that, a lot of them felt seen, they felt targeted, and I was targeting every single white woman in there. And Hannah was there that day. And then after we ran into each other and she told me about that she felt seen, she felt like it resonated with her. And so she decided to be active about it and start a conversation in her living room with her friends about this. Mm-hmm. And I thought that was really cool. I left for a few months. I went to Israel for a few months, came back, and she continued. And I thought it was cool. I was like, okay, cool. Well, she's not performing this, thing. She's keeping up with it. So then after that, I proposed that we take this outside of a private setting and we humanize conversations, and we create a podcast where we literally invite people to come, mainly women, but to come and to talk about their experience and to humanize these narratives that we usually see just through a pain and suffering lens. Yeah. And then that took we got a lot of success with the podcast. And then finally we were approached to write the book.
Oh, that is incredible. And, as a Black woman, so kind of from the outside looking in, I will say it takes courage, Hannah, to follow up and then keep following up. Because I could imagine it is uncomfortable, it is uncomfortable learning new things maybe. And learning new things about yourself, not only about the world. And when you were talking about the women who were on the outside, who weren't participating, the white women, I kind of put myself in the shoes of a white woman because I always feel like since like 2020, like we've said to, listen and learn. So it's like, should I just listen and learn or should I actually like step in? Did you have that like conversation in your head about when is the appropriate time to step in and speak up, Hannah?
Absolutely. I was terrified because I just thought that if I were to say anything, it would be the wrong thing, or it might not be well received, or who am I to take up space in this conversation? And it wasn't until Izu got up and said, no, this is supposed to be a dialogue that requires your participation, that something clicked for me. And this was before 2020 when, I think there was a little bit more dialogue around this from the white community.
Mm-hmm.
It was referred to 2020 as a racial big bang for white people, which I just think is so perfect. So I realized when Izu called out the white women, like, oh yeah, like I'm completely guilty of this. So I tracked her down, and yeah, it's been an extremely uncomfortable journey, but something that we always say is how important it is to lean into the discomfort. And I think the white women, there's such a difference between discomfort and actual threat, but we conflate the two, and we think that, we really our risk is much lower than those of our friends of color. So our discomfort, I feel like, is once we get used to it and leaning into it, we recognize that it's really not so big and scary. So the more that I do this work, and we've been working together for the past 4 years as the kinswoman, I'm getting used to the discomfort. It's kind of like a constant companion for me, but it's not as scary as it used to be. Izu has said discomfort doesn't kill, and it's just such a good reminder that even if you feel discomfort as a white woman or person aspiring towards this work, that's no excuse to opt out and remove yourself from it.
Oh, so well said. So let's talk about what are the do's and don'ts of having these conversations. I don't know if Yseult, you want to take the lead on this? Or?
Yeah, sure. I think that it goes with each relationship. Like there's no one kind of recipe to have this conversation because it depends on like the type of relationship when you have this person. I think like creating context in the type of relationship that people have is really important and will dictate how you move. Like you can't talk to someone in the street the same way you speak to someone that's your friend. And so I think we have to put that in context. The book really focuses on interpersonal relationships. So like it's speaking on people that are close already, either close in close like work or intimate relationship or friendships. And so I think that that's a first understanding. Does this relationship makes me feel, gives me the chance to have this conversation? Is this the right person? I think that's like really like a first. What we saw a lot at some point was like a lot of random white people reaching out to random Black people or people of color and be like, oh, so like I need to learn about this. And it's like, but you don't know this person. Like, I think that there's so many resources out there to start off with where you don't have to go to strangers, or you can turn to people that are willing to give you that space, but it's not a given. Like it's part of boundary building within relationships and knowing if you can have this conversation with this person or not. So I think that's a first. Don't assume that someone is there to help you grow. Like earlier you were saying, we told white people to like just listen. I think that I continue to say white people need to listen and then entertain conversation within their own circles, within spaces of other people like them trying to learn. And we do learn from our peers. And so like taking space within like BIPOC communities is going to be, even if you are the kindest person on earth, it's going to be harmful because you're just going to bring in like, a part of you that doesn't know, which is fair. It's not a problem not to know, but it's like, is it a space that allows that, or is it a space made for you for that? And I think that we really need to put that in context. Like, yes, continue to listen and to learn, and also learn to build your own spaces to have these conversations with people that are willing to support you in that journey. And then find people of color that are willing to give you space to teach you if they want to teach you. Some people are not down for it. Like I have friends that are like, I could never do what you do. I can never sit in a room with white people saying that they're nice people. And then, and I understand it. I completely understand it. And so like respecting the individuality of people is so important, because then we've humanized them. Then we've said, you're people, you feel things, and that you're not there to serve me. And so it's breaking away from this like systematic mindset that comes from white privilege, white supremacy, to say, okay, let me humanize this person. Let me see that they're not there for me, and I can find another place, because like so many people have been doing this for so long. And so there's spaces that exist. So I think these are two very, very important factors for me.
Yeah. Very, very well said. And I do have a question. So for somebody like you who does this work, and as an outsider looking in, because I don't do that type of work, it seems like it might be something that could be like emotionally like draining in a sense, because you may have to like relive some traumas and reopen some things, right? So how do you take care of yourself? To stay well, like mentally, emotionally, all of those things.
Yeah, this book has reinforced the idea that I already had and was applying to myself, is like finding community that supports me and humanizes me completely. And I have white friends, obviously, but like, it's not the same as being within your community. And like that means differently for different people. But for me, it's being in places where I don't feel like I have to like feel at guard, or feel like something might come. And now we're in a conversation I didn't want to have. Like just existing is like really a luxury for BIPOC people when you experience, like when you are in a space where you're a minority. So I really have reinforced this even through this book more than ever. But also, the way I go about having these conversations is always by like shifting this like dynamic that's always existed. Like the dynamics that always existed in regards to these conversations is like, as a Black person, I come in and I tell my story and I say how hurt I am and I show that I bleed red like you. And it's just like, it hasn't worked. Like, obviously there's something missing. Yeah. Like there's something that's not clicking on the other side, even from really well-intended people. So to me, the way I want to shift this conversation, the way I approach this conversation is to say like, look in within you so that you can have a better impact on the outside. So it's not so much as like I'm fighting to humanize myself to you, but I'm trying to tell people reintroduce humanity that's completely robbed from white supremacy, right? Within a white supremacist dynamic, there's humanity and it's completely erased. So like when we're like, but why don't they feel what we're feeling? Why don't they care? It's because literally it's embedded in the hierarchical of like gender, race, sexuality, all these things. And as a person that's Black and a person of color, you fall into this like part where you're literally dehumanized for so many parts of you. So like I shift the conversation where I'm putting the mirror in them and saying like, how are you failing yourself as a human? Because that is affecting my well-being and ultimately will affect my children. So it's like I start there, and then it guards me, it protects me from having to, tell a personal story to people that I don't even know, that don't know me. Like, why would you care? You know what I mean? Like, even if you're like the nicest person on earth, like that's just not how the world actually works,
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, so I want to ask you, Hannah. So you mentioned earlier that like now you always have that discomfort. So how do you, as the past 4 years, have you been learning and unlearning different things about yourself and the world? How do you take care of yourself mentally, emotionally, as you may learn some not so great things about you and just the world at large?
That's such a good question. I think you're the first person to ask either of this question, like ever. So I really appreciate it. For me, I do yoga, like physically, I need to manage my energy. I very much live in my head. And when I can get back into my body, I feel way better. I just feel way more emotionally regulated. But yeah, this does bring up a lot for me. I've really changed my whole lifestyle in the past several years. Stopping drinking made doing this work easier for me in the sense that I felt more clear. I felt I had more energy, better days, because sometimes this work can feel really heavy. And I feel weird saying that for me, like as a white person, because it's a different kind of heaviness. But, in the past several years, as I'm sure a lot of people have experienced, seeing the ideological divides between your close friends, your family, and seeing those relationships rupture or not be what you thought they were, has caused a lot of pain, like for me specifically and for so many people. So having people that I can talk to who understand like the work that I do, because white people don't necessarily embrace the work that I do or want to talk about it. So finding fellow white people who care in the same ways and kind of are at similar places on their allyship journey has been so important for me. And that's led me to people that I never thought I would meet or be friends with, or, situations I never thought I'd be in. So for me, those are the big things, like making sure my body emotionally and physically feels good, getting enough sleep, not drinking, trying to eat as healthily as possible, and being around community who supports what I do, because this work is such a big part of my life that I've just seen relationships over the years kind of fade out since starting Kins Women. So yeah, my community, similarly to what Evie said, is really key for me for my well-being.
Yeah, that has been such a common thread that I've been hearing of people who do work similar to both of you, has been how community has been so important and how community has changed for them too since embarking in this journey. And I think it also just speaks to how our society really like thrives on not prioritizing community, and how it's important for our progress and for our even not collective progress. Not only that, but like even our internal well-being, how community is just so important. Yeah, so thank you for sharing that. So I kind of want to ask about, so since you mentioned your community, Hannah, I've been doing some thinking because it's about to be 3 years since, what do you call it? You called it the
Big Bang.
The racial Big Bang. So it's about to be 3 years next month. And I was thinking about how there has been minimal progress, right? Especially in talking about looking at corporations and all their big pledges and how they're going to diversify and yada, yada, yada. And I've seen very little progress. So my question is, in your community, have you seen people still have the same energy individually to learn and to undo the things that they were taught?
I'm going to say no. No. I think for white people at large, we might think that things have changed only because we see these superficial signifiers of the pledges, like you mentioned, or people talking about it more at work or in school, talking about DEI or CRT or like these buzzwords. And I think maybe white people have a little bit more of an awareness right now, but I think noticing that something's wrong is only like the very first step.
Yeah.
So the energy and the urgency that we saw 3 years ago has waned so much. We've seen it on our work. So like we have people, not because we started doing this before 2020. So when 2020 came, people were like knocking down our door, like, hey, can we pick your brain? Like, can you help me solve this problem? And we saw our podcast listens spike. I'm wondering if you saw similar numbers. And then they just kind of fade, back to normal. So I understand that urgency is not necessarily sustainable and outrage isn't sustainable. But I haven't seen from the white community at large this big change.
Yeah.
I haven't. And even in my community where I do a lot of social justice work, the white people that I see who are most invested have a very personal connection to communities of color. Either their children are biracial or they have a partner of color, which was the case for me too. Like I have a very personal connection, but it needs to be so much bigger than that, because people who just exist in white communities, if they don't see that this work actually impacts all of us, it lifts us all up, then, what's their incentive? And it's such a shame. Like we don't even see performative allyship anymore. Like we were seeing on social media all of 2020, we barely see that. So, I'm noticing, I notice my friends who don't, and that's, I think, why we wrote the book, is because this issue is still so important. It's more important than ever, and it always will be. And just because there's not as much in the press, that doesn't mean we need to take our foot off the pedal.
Agreed. Excuse me. So speaking of the post and like the performative allyship and everything, let's talk a little bit about the racism in the digital world. I think oh goodness gracious. One thing that has been in forefront. So I'm on TikTok. That's my pleasure. At night I scroll. And I have been seeing what's been going on right now. It's like the Tarte makeup, the makeup company. Do you guys know what's going on with that? So I'll give you like a really brief synopsis. There's a makeup company named Tarte, and they have for years, they have never had a wide range of color selection for foundations and concealers and things. Then a few years ago, they have said, okay, well, we've extended our shade range. So they had like maybe 5 different shades of literally orange. Okay. Like nobody was that color. Long story short, fast forward to today, they do these huge brand trips for like the influencers in the beauty community that are typically, they usually pick like white girls. This time they picked one Black girl, and she thought that she was going home early or something like that. Like it wasn't the same treatment. So they had 2 other girls just come in her place because she decided to leave early. And so now the CEO of the cosmetics company is like asking for like, is saying that she's going to change and yada, 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 and treat all of the influencers equitably and yada, yada, yada. But we've been hearing this for years. So talking about like the differences in pay between the white influencers versus the Black ones, the accommodations of the white influencers versus the Black ones. I think it speaks to one of your points in the book about the racism in the digital age. And I only could imagine that AI is only going to amplify that in some ways. So I said a lot. So I saw Yseult's eyebrows go up.
I mean, the AI is a joke because it's not we're not waiting for it to be. It's like already is, because there's these like Black models that are being created, for example, that are making so much money, working with so many brands, but they're created by white men.
Yep.
So it's like all these creation of AI that people are loving and whatever, like, are created by white-owned companies and white men, and so we're still in the same system. So the issues are going to be presented differently, but it's like, it's almost having like when you have, you have a disease, you have it and I have it, but then we have different symptoms. And then you start taking medicine, and then your body starts adapting to the new medicine, so you have other symptoms. Like there's new symptoms that show. That's exactly how these issues come up. It's like, we are not dealing with the roots of the problem. Right. So it's going to continue to show up in new medium. Like, yeah, we talked about blackface, little blackface of like back in the day where people, colored their skin or whatever. Then we have now blackface in a different way, digital blackface. And so it's like, it's the same issue, because the root of the issue, the systematic issue that exists, is still in function, fully in function. And because like, I think, the performative thing is permitted because I think BIPOC communities are so happy when something seems to give, right? But it's like, I'm never for the mediocrity. Like I see mediocrity coming hot when it comes to me, because it's like, I know this is just so superficial, like I know that it's like you just want to seem like you're doing something, but you're not really doing it. I want to know who owns the company. I want to know, like, people are so excited to see AI, like artificial creation, be like Black people, and like, see these like cool, there's like all these like made up models of like these older Asian AI made models with like tattoos and shit. It's the community is not winning from that. Like, it's still. So I think that, like, I think that we're going to continue seeing performative actions because we're not asking the right questions, and because people are not pressing it hard. Like, we need to put the boot on the neck and press until we get exactly what we want, which is like being at the root of the things and like getting into like the most uncomfortable part. And a lot of the times they stay superficial because we think something is giving, but it's not giving, So unfortunately, we see it in social media, we see it in everything. And like any type of system or space is going to show, it's going to show up. It's going to exist. It's up for people, not just people of color, by the way. It's also the responsibility of white people that claim to be allies to ask themselves questions and to press. One thing about America is money speaks so loud. And we have power. Like, we have money power. And even if it doesn't seem like that, even if it doesn't, like, even if it's there's this whole propaganda of like, Black money isn't worth anything. It's not true. Right. And especially in spaces like the makeup industry, are you kidding me? Like, there's so much money. That's why you have brands that automatically understood that they had to diversify their foundation and stuff like that. I've been on it for like forever. And so, but for me, it's like, why do we even care? Like, a company that doesn't want to make new shades, it's like, why do I care? Like, I have Rihanna's Fenty. I have other, like, we put our money where people, I want to go in rooms where I feel like there's somewhat of a possibility of conversation. Yes. If we're talking about you making a shade for my color of skin, you're not, that's like not even one level. It's like, okay, sis, go back three books before and sit down with like why you need to. It's even to make money. It's not even like you don't have to love the people, but like, why aren't you making skin tones that are speaking to a wider range so you can make money? And I think that like that's the problem. People always think that like specifically in these spaces where we're talking about money, it's like, oh, we're trying to be kind. It's like there's always this dynamic of like allyship being presented as like some type of
like altruism.
Charity. Okay. Yeah, like charity. It's like there's no charity. You're still going to be making money. You're still going to be winning if you listen to your potential public that's saying, make something for me. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So yeah, that's my point of view.
So you mentioned asking the right questions. So what questions should we be asking of the companies? And aside from makeup, like what are the right questions that we should be asking?
I think that people should be asking who has the real power, who has power of decision, not just the representation, like who has power of decision, who these people are, because not all like kin folks are like, is it? Yeah. Folks are, you know what I mean? Like we need to see who these people are. Are they really trying to do something for the community? Are they really like part of trying to change things? And so the system at place is really strong, and like we are affected by it. White people are affected by it, and we're affected by it. And so we need to be asking like who really has power of decision, and why haven't they done it before? What was stopping them? Like understanding the ideology and the root of like what has held them to not move forward and not to evolve. And if there's things that they can pinpoint, then maybe you have a chance of changing things. But if they can't even pinpoint what is it that has made them stay where they are, then they need to stop asking us to give stuff, try to get consulting and asking, how do you address these blind spots, right? Because otherwise it's like a cracked table. You're just fixing the paint. You're not fixing the table. So it's like always going to be problematic. You're just going to have to add a layer of coat all the time every 6 months, but you haven't fixed the table. So that's what it is. It's like asking the deeper questions, understanding if the company really understands where the blind spot is, and if they have a plan at addressing these blind spots. And God knows there's so many consulting companies. There's so many people that are willing to make money out of this. So just like, it's not that hard, you know?
For me, I think if you keep painting the same cracked table over and over again, you made a decision. Like you can see it's cracked. You see, you have to come back and keep painting it. Like you made a decision. You don't want it to be fixed. Like you're okay with the crack in the table. Yeah. So before we wrap up, I like the journey of your friendship and how you became friends. And what are some realities that people may not know about of interracial relationships and friendships? Hannah, I'll let you take this one.
We wrote this book because we wanted to demystify some of the stereotypes about interracial relationships and friendships. And we often say that our friendship does not signify any kind of post-racial utopia or ideal, that the complexities and the power dynamics that exist between us and other interracial friendship relationships, whether that's at work, at home, are there. Like we can't just overlook and say, oh, because we're in love or because I love my friend, like there's no issue, because the world is going to treat you a certain way. We come with our ancestors' histories. We come with our own trauma. So we really try to demystify the kind of like rainbows and butterflies idea that can sometimes come along with pictures or images of interracial friendships. So in our friendship and in the book, we write about these 4 foundations of building trust in any interracial friendship and relationship. And these can be used really in any relationship, but I think in interracial friendships, from white people, we want to bypass like all of the ickiness and like just be friends.
Yep.
So we talk about trust requires time, transparency, consistency, and communication. We go into those 4 things. Because really, allyship and friendship have so much in common. Like when we first started working together, Yseult was like, just like a friendship, you need time to build trust. You don't just instantly become a friend, and you don't instantly become an ally. And the person to whom you wish to be an ally is really the person who gets to decide if the other person is being one. So I think those are some of the things that in interracial friendships and relationships, those are some myths, like that proximity equals allyship automatically. And that's not true. There's so much work has to be done behind the scenes. And the consistency piece is like, it's not about a one and done, book or donation or event. It really takes so much ongoing effort and willingness to be wrong too. Like from the white person's part, for me, it's like recognizing where my defenses and ego and resistance is, and just understanding where that comes from and understanding how that hurts, Yseult or another friend or my partner. We always want to believe we're really good people, but of course, like it's about the impact and it's not about the intention. You hear that term a lot, but I think when it comes to interracial friendships and relationships, like we ignore the discomfort from the white side because we just want to believe like we're good people, we're allies. But if you're not having those like deep and messy conversations, like is it really a true friendship? And if you don't feel like you can share, everyone can share like their full spectrum of who they are, is it a real friendship? So those are the things that we are encouraging our readers and listeners to investigate.
Thank you. Thank you so much for your time, ladies. I am going to link the book down below. Real Friends Talk About Race, Bridging the Gaps Through Uncomfortable Conversations. Super, super important read for all of us. Thank you so much for your time. And I'll also, of course, link your podcast down below as well. So please go listen, go follow, subscribe, all of those good things. Thank you so much. Is there anything that you would like to add? Anything that I missed?
No, I'm just happy that you invited us into your space. And I hope that this brings some type of space for conversation.
Absolutely. I think this is such a beautiful gateway. I think this would be like a good like book club or just like friends reading together. Really, really good. And like read a chapter, chat about it, read another chapter, chat some more. Really, really great conversation starter. Thank you for your work, ladies. And thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thanks, Cassandra.